Okay, today is a Wednesday. It is 2:38 a.m. Now today, the United States will have a the United States is going to have a CPI release today. Okay, at around like 12:30, right? Which is 12:30, which is going to be, let's see here. 12:30 is going to be 12:30 is going to be in about 12:30. Currently the European session is currently at 8:30. So there's going to be at 12:30. That's 4 hours from now, which means that at about 6:30 in the morning, Mountain Standard Time, there's going to be a CPI release. See, I haven't thought about this in the past. I haven't really. See, it's weird because I've heard of prop firms like the funding pips. They say the first line, it says you have to be dynamic in order to be successful. You have to be, right? That's what they say, and it's true because the market is dynamic. It's not stagnant. Okay. Initially, when I got into this business of day trading, I thought, okay, it's all I have to do is figure out the combination to the ATM machine, right? Automated teller machine, right? And all I have to do is punch in that number, and I can just withdraw money anytime I want. And 5 years has gone by, and challenges after challenges, I lost, and then I'm sitting here. Now with like it's as though that the addiction and emotion has been like it's like a walnut. Somebody cracked open the walnut. Is like it was hard encased in this shell of a walnut from exposing the morsel of the inner content to be exposed to the outer world. And that outer world is the ability to see the market as it is. But because of the thick walnut shell, I was unable to see the world, and I kept doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, being foolish and making the same mistakes and tripping and falling and losing over and over again, repeating. It's like bouncing around inside this walnut. But now the thick shell, which was the addiction and emotion, has been removed. Now I'm finally, my consciousness is finally exposed to the outer elements. For me to view the world, the trading world, in its entirety, right? So what I noticed about I looked at the CPI. I know that is volatile. Okay. PPI is less volatile, but the CPI is very, very volatile. And there are like forex pairs which has US dollar in it will move dramatically. Okay, when a significant change occurs, that defines the CPI. Okay, it does that. I've seen it. It does that. It moves dramatically, right? It moves dramatically. So I thought if I just had a combination of the ATM machine, which is the market, I could take the money out anytime I want. But now I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the world. I am now able to see the world for what it is, the market world, the securities world, the financial world. I'm able to see it a lot more clearly. So I haven't read this book. Okay, I haven't read this book, but there is a book called by Charles Dickens. Okay, it's called A Tale of Two Cities, and the beginning sounds like this, and it parallels what's happening in the market. Okay, So I'm documenting this. Okay. So it says here, Dickens opens the novel with a sentence that has become famous. It is famous because I remember it, because I latched onto it as I was thinking about the dynamic part of day trading, right? So the line goes like this, okay? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. So essentially, it is an outstretched encompassing of the extremes of the world. It's covering both. It's covering this extreme and that extreme. And what I noticed about the parallels of that opening statement with the market is that indeed, something like a CPI, when that CPI is released, a dramatic thing happens. It'll either go rail to that side or it'll rail to that side. Okay? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And so Euro USD, EU could go one side, and then the USD UCF would go to the other side, right? They are inversely correlated, and so they move to the to its extremes. And so what's happening? What I've noticed? This is something. It seems so obvious, but to me, it's not. It was not so obvious. The market. See, when I first started, I thought, okay, so the market is so obvious. It is extremely obvious. It is so obvious that I was willing to put my money into it, thinking that, okay, so all I have to do is risk my money on it, and I should be able to make money out of that, right? That's what I thought for years, and then I never. It was a time of foolishness, right? So essentially, what I did was just give my money away, right? I just gave it away. It was a time of foolishness. Now I'm looking into it a little bit with a clearer view of what the market is, and my own experiences apply to it, which now is giving me a clarity in which is giving me a clarity in looking at the market, the way that I was supposed to look at it, without the veil, without the opaque veil of the emotions and all that stuff that were obscuring my view of the market. So what am I getting at? So what I'm getting at is that the market indeed is very dynamic. It is dynamic. It is dynamic because there are periods. Just like that story. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Okay, so there will be cases. There will be situations where there will be periods of tranquility, and there will be periods of extreme volatility. Okay, and right now, in about 4 hours, the market is going to be exposed based on the severity of the difference between the expectation of what of the CPI and the disclosed value of the CPI. And if there's a enormous amount of contrast, then there's going to be a dramatic movement to latch in the current market so that it matches the CPI numbers. So this is critical because I essentially did the same thing. Okay, so here's why. Why is it so important? What does that mean for me to be dynamic. Okay, what does that mean that I have to be dynamic? I have to be dynamic because I have to match the level of intensity. Okay, I have to match the level of intensity. Okay. See, this all goes back to like these concepts that I didn't understand in the past. Okay, when there is an argument or discussion of something, there has to be a level of intensity that has to match in order to conduct a proper conversation, right? The level of intensity has to match with the level of intensity that the other side is providing and contributing to the current conversation, right? So I noticed that. And that's why it's called dynamic. Okay, so the definition of being dynamic is I can be dynamic, but I have to be matched with the market to be dynamic. If I am dynamic, but I'm not synchronized with the market, then it's still not dynamic because it would be the same thing as not doing anything, right? I have to match the intensity of the market and also be matched and synchronized with the market. Those two things have to happen in order for me to be considered a dynamic. If I am on the opposite side, then I am really not dynamic. I'm not being dynamic. I'm not matching the intensity of the market. The volatility is there, but it's not. The second part is I have to be in synchronization with the market. Okay, that's how that makes me. That is going to make me dynamic with the market. Okay, I didn't see that. I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this in the past. All I did was, in the past, my involvement with the market was essentially the same. And when the market moved quite a bit, I'm saying to me, even though the same CPI report was out, and it was generating a dramatic move, I was not able to correctly assign that the global economic news was impacting whatever is going on, and I was unable to match the intensity and the dynamic nature of the market. Okay, so I was not able to do that. I was not able to match my intensity with the market. Okay, and because I was unable to match the intensity, the dynamic nature of the market, I was always I was essentially caught off guard in all cases. Okay, sometimes I'd be lucky and I would get in there, but if it moves in my direction a little bit, I would get out because I was afraid that I would lose it. Okay, so that's why I was able to successfully lose every time. Okay, if it was 50-50, if I had 100 tries, then at least 50 would have passed and 50 would have lost. But because I was completely on the other side, cutting my winners short and then holding my losers long is a formula for a consistent loss. Okay, I've discovered this. I've been thinking about this. I was like a couple of days ago. I was thinking, okay, so I've been doing this for 5 years and I only passed like twice. I was only get funded and get a payout twice. Okay, and then I had like probably about 1,000 times. I had like 1,000 problems and I've failed those. That consistency is essentially cutting my winners early and then holding on to my losers. That's the reason. With a combination of too big of a size. Okay, too big of a size, cutting my winners short and holding my losers long. That right there was it. And what it could have helped was for me to make sure that my setup was right. Okay, to make sure that the setups that I'm using had a higher validity in trading. Okay, so a combination of that would have helped out. But now what I'm seeing now is a bit of clarity in my trading. Okay, the bit of clarity is now understanding what being dynamic means. Okay, being dynamic means that I understand that the market is dynamic. Okay, it is dynamic. For instance, the CPI is going to divulge in about 4 hours, 3.5 hours now. Okay, and when that hits, it's going to create a period of volatility that is essentially an outlier to vast majority of the time. Okay, so there will be a spike in volatility. Okay, so that means that the trading, although the period of volatility is similar, the dynamic nature is very different. It is very similar to the European market opening, or the Asian market opening, or the New York session opening, because there is a window of time. There is a window of time where the volatility impacted by the news that are impacting that current market is taking effect, and when that volatility is exposed to that environment, then it's going to. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is it's going to have a period. It's going to have a period of volatility that's going to consume the macroeconomic news that has been divulged. Okay. And it's very similar to what the CPI is going to do. Okay, so initially, what's possible, like what the New York session does, in a lot of the cases, what the New York session does is it opens up, and at the opening, what it would do is for a period of time, it may be confused, and so it will go up and reverse before it finally moves into direction of the impacting news. And the CPI is behaving the same way. And so if I were to extrapolate between, that phenomenon of the global economic news, which is the CPI, then it is very similar to what happens everywhere else. Okay, and that's why it's dynamic. And I didn't realize that. Now, which means I was thinking, okay, so I'm thinking about so that means that it's going to be a little bit trickier. It's going to be a bit trickier. It's going to be a little bit trickier to trade during that time, because that means that I have to adjust. Okay, if I trade one lot, see, this is something that I already knew, but I was unable to adjust. I was not able to adjust the dynamic nature of these sessions. This is a prime example of the difference between the Asian market, the European market, and the U.S. market. Because generally speaking, the U.S. market is more volatile. Okay, is more volatile than the European market or the Asian market. So that means that during the period of the Asian market, if I were to trade it, then that the period that I'm trading that, the size could be bigger than the European market because the volatility is lower. Now, on the other side, when I'm trading the European market, the size of the European market could be bigger than the U.S. market because the U.S. market is more volatile. That means that essentially what that means, and this is something, it's so obvious. It's so obvious now. It is so obvious, but it is obvious, but then again, it's difficult to really master this, because it is still very difficult to master. It's not an easy thing, because matching up the intensity of the market is not an easy thing to do. I know that I understand it. It does happen. I understand what's happening. Okay? I fully understand what's happening. But what I have to be aware is that the techniques in taking advantage of that situation is not an easy thing to do. Okay? So, so that means, see, I already knew that these things did occur, but it was difficult for me to match it up because I was not aware of how I match up the intensity of these particular situations because I was not, so how do I match up the intensity of the CPI? How do I do that? How do I do that? Okay, so I know right off the bat now. Before I didn't even know. I didn't even know how to handle it. I had no idea. I essentially had no idea how to handle this situation. Okay, and I'm being completely honest here. And that's the reason why I was losing. I was losing all the time. I was not careful. I was not. It's like a while back I stated. Okay, so if you want to be a good trader, you have to be able to. You want to look before you leap. Okay, which means that there's a lot of things that I need to look at. One of them is the global economic news, what's been happening on before the next candle is painted. Okay, and so so that is an indication what happens, what the candle printed prior to the next candle is a predictor, is a possible predictor. Okay, it's not a sure thing. Nobody makes money for sure, right? That's why it's trading. It's not not everybody makes money from trading. So that means that it is a predictor of the possibility something could happen that could be possibly be predicted, anticipated. Okay, that the price movement can it can be statistically predicted in a certain direction. Okay, I hope I made that clear. Okay, so that means, so this is something that I didn't see. This is something that I didn't think about. Okay, this is something that I did not think about, and I'm just wondering now, why was it? Why did I not even think about this? Why did I not even think about it? So I mean, in the past, what I did was my thinking was this. Okay, so the CPI is going to come out. And then what I did was I was averaging in with small size so that I can, as it was going down, I would start to scale in. Okay, I would start to scale in. But what happens is that if I don't anticipate the magnitude of if I don't anticipate the magnitude of that movement, a small size will take me out. Okay, it essentially will ruin my a challenge because the movement is so much. Me thinking that a small size won't have such a big impact on it will be an erroneous thinking. Okay. All right. Now, all these things is a result. These are the results. These are the things. This is a conclusion that I'm making based on the results of removing the emotion and the addiction from trading. Okay. Only through. See. I keep mentioning this. I keep mentioning how important it is to really understand the impact of emotion and addiction in anything. Okay, I mean it essentially is it essentially is a veil. It's a veil that blocks me from seeing the world as it is, because emotion and addiction is a subjective filter of life, and only by suppressing and removing the emotion and addiction, I'm able to see the world in an objective manner. Okay? And I have been, it's like, wow, it's like, it was, for the past 5 years, I was like walking around with, essentially what I have been doing is, essentially for the past 5 years, essentially what I have been doing is just like, blindly doing something without even looking. I was unable to see anything, and I was just doing it, which for 5 years. because it's the blinders. It's like driving backwards, looking forward. Okay, that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years, and only through realizing the significance of emotion and addiction of trading, and once I removed that from my life, I was able to finally start to see the significance of the CPI report. Okay, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Okay, that's the dynamic nature of what trading is. From moment to moment, reversals is an indication of it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Okay, it was the worst of times, it was the best of times. Okay, there's a period of calm. Okay, right before something drastic occurs, and so now I'm able to see. Now I'm able to see, and I'm able to respect. I'm now able to respect what's going to happen. So in about 3.5 hours, based on the magnitude of the difference between the expectation of the CPI report, and the real number, the expectation is actually placing the current price of that security at its current level. But if the price is dramatically disjointed from the current price that was set by the market, the market is going to drastically move to that new level, okay? And it's going to move in a very, very voracious, vicious way to that way. And CPI reports usually do that because it has a tremendous impact on especially the forex market, right? As well as the futures, and as well as the market, okay, the securities market. So I hope I've described the situation fully, okay, because I was not able to understand it. So me being dynamic means I'm able to observe what's going on. And that's why the market wasn't moving very much at the beginning of the European market open. Okay, it's currently at about 3 o'clock. The European market has been open for about 3 hours. Now it's starting to like toggle back and forth. I can see it, right? But as soon as it opened, because of the heavy weight of the global economic news, which is essentially the CPI report, it was like it wasn't moving at all. Okay, but now it's moving a little bit, right? So now that I look at it, it's moved quite a bit actually. So the UC went from 0.77664 to 0.77888. Okay, so I don't know how much that is. Let's see. Alrighty. So if I look here. So essentially, that's about 218 points. It moved 218 points from where it was. Okay, so it is moving. It is definitely moving. So there's some volatility right now. Okay, it is moving in anticipation of what's going to happen with the CPI report in about 3.5 hours. So I didn't understand what dynamic situation is. I was thinking, okay, so usually the ATM machine is inside a bank. Okay, it's either in a bank or it's in a grocery store. Okay, so these ATM machines, generally speaking, are secured with some sort of being locked into a foundation. Okay, and it's either chained up or it's bolted down to somewhere else. Okay, and it is generally placed in an area where it is close to where a banking institution is, right? Like the entrance to a bank, or it is at it is either a grocery store or it is at a gas station or somewhere around there, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, so initially I was like, with my trading buddy, I was talking about, okay, so we were talking about this, once we figure out how to make money from the market, it's like taking money out of the ATM. But what I've discovered is this, okay? Sure, it is very similar to taking money out of the ATM machine, right? Because I have the right combination of knowledge and experience that allows me to take money out of the market, okay? Which is very similar to what an ATM machine is, because the combination of extracting money from the market is essentially having that combination, which is equivalent to knowing and having the experience to take money out of the market, okay? That's very similar to what an ATM is. And so then I didn't understand when this funding pips said you have to be dynamic. Okay, now I do. Now I see what they're talking about. When they say I have to be dynamic, it means that I have to match the volatility and the direction, which essentially equates to me being a dynamic individual. Okay, it allows me to be dynamic, meaning there's two qualifiers to make me a dynamic person. In sync with the market. I keep talking about, okay, so how do I get in sync with the market? Okay, well, I get in sync with the market by knowing the volatility, which allows me to size in right. Okay, if I don't know what the volatility is, if I'm trading on the Asian market or European market or U.S. market, then if I across the board use the same risk factor, then something's going to be different. Something's going to be less effective, impactful in the objective that I have, or it's going to exceed my expectation and cause my account to be severely compromised, right? So there are a couple things that I need to be aware of. One of them is I have to know what the volatility is, and I have to know. The second part is I have to know. So which direction it is. Okay, so I have to know what the volatility is, and I have to be. In order for me to be dynamic, I have to be in sync with the market. In order for me to be in sync with the market, I have to know what the volatility is, so that I become aware of the volatility. After I become aware of the volatility, then I also need to be in sync, which means that whatever the situation is, then I need to be in sync with the market. Primarily the direction, okay? So I have to get the volatility and the direction right. That allows me to be a dynamic person, right? In order that allows me. Now that I see it, now I see. I was worried. Okay, so how am I supposed to make money off this market if there's a constant change of volatility? Okay, how am I supposed to adapt to it? How do I throttle myself? Okay, so I suppose it's like driving a car. It's the same thing. Okay, there will be people in life who are more relaxed, okay? And I have to match up my intensity with those individuals who are more relaxed. And then there will be people who are more intense. Then I have to match the intensity of that person in order to be dynamic. This is very similar to people who are a dynamic conversationalist, people who are able to make decisions very well. People who are aware of, so it's very similar to somebody who's being it's very similar to somebody who is in the moment. Okay, it's in the moment. Somebody has to be in the moment in order to be aware of what the situation is, so that a person can be dynamic, to match up the intensity. That's probably why I sell too early. That's probably why I sell too late. That's probably why. That's probably why that my size is too big. So these are the three things that tells me that I'm not dynamic. It means that because I'm not aware of the volatility and the direction, not in the sync, it means that I'm not aware of the volatility of it, so I sell too soon. Okay? That is hampering, that is undermining the objective that I have to make it work. The second part is I'm not dynamic because what I'm doing is I'm allowing something to move against me. Okay? there's two things. I'm not aware of the volatility. I'm not even aware of the direction. So I'm out of sync in two orders, right? So that essentially is undermining it. So what was I talking about? So I'm talking about, okay, so when the price moves in my direction, I sell it too early. When the price moves against me, I sell too late. And then the third part is the size, the risk size. Okay, the risk size must match the volatility of the market. Okay, it's irrelevant to the direction, but it has to match with the volatility of the market. The size has to market. I have to be a dynamic person. I have to be a dynamic person in order to be, see, the market is dynamic. Why is it dynamic? Let's talk about this. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It has these extremes. Okay, so that means, okay, so now I'm thinking about it. Okay, so what things causes the market to be different, moment by moment? Okay, the price moves and inverts and goes the other direction. That's different. Sometimes the candles are bigger. Sometimes the candles are bigger. Okay. Sometimes the candles are longer. Sometimes the candles are longer than other angle candles. That's dynamic. Okay, that's being dynamic. Okay. All right. Those are okay. So when I look at that, that's. And then sometimes what it will do is it'll leisurely move up. Sometimes it'll just parabolically move. Sometimes it'll move in a channel. Sometimes it'll move down. Sometimes it'll move sideways. That's being dynamic. But I was so one-dimensional that I didn't know. So if I switch from UJ to UC, it's going to change. It's different. The spread and the commission, okay? The commission is the same, but the spread is different. Okay? So if I switch to EU, the spread is different. Okay? The volatility is different. Okay? The candle size is different. It moves different. Okay? And if I switch to gold, now there's a volatility, and the volatility and the direction can be different with gold to other forex pairs. So that's what's causing it to be dynamic. Okay? So what makes these things dynamic are two primary things, which is essentially the volatility and the direction. Okay? From one candle to another candle, that one candle can be longer than the next candle. Okay? And the candle could be in a different direction. So that's what's different. That's why it's different. It is so obvious. But I didn't realize that. Well, people talk about, there's like little dojis, and there's like the first red candle, the second red candle, the marching soldiers, right? Three candles, that's like marching candle, things like that, right? But I never put those things together to make that connection between the volatility, okay? I'm like, so I was not aware. That those are things that are making it a dynamic thing. Okay, the word dynamic is supported by the volatility and the direction. Okay, that's what's making it dynamic in the market. Okay, then what's further describing it is, okay, there will be a period where the CPI report will come in. There will be a period where the Asian market will open. Okay, there will be a period where it's right in the middle of the Asian market. There will be a period where the European market will be right in the middle. And then there will be a U.S. market that's going to be right in the middle. And generally speaking, the volatility declines somewhere in the middle, which is different than the opening of the U.S. market. Okay? So the volatility and the direction can be drastically different from opening. But generally speaking, if a global economic news impacts it, most likely there will be periods where about 20% of the time is going to trend, which means that it's going to take whatever results after the initial opening of volatility reversals and things like that, and the trend has been established, it's going to carry through the middle of the day and even towards the close. Maybe some profit taking will cause it to revert in the direction, but it may still continue the next day. Okay, so that's dynamic. That's being dynamic. Okay, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Okay, that's being dynamic. That's the dynamic nature of trading, right? So how do I take advantage of this? Generally speaking, when something moves, what the magnitude is different. Okay, the magnitude is different, and the choppiness may be more so in a volatile market than a lesser volatile market. Okay, so the lesser volatile market may have less choppiness to it. Whereas if something is volatile and it's trying to determine which direction to go, it could be ping-ponging severely because there's a volatilities there, okay? But it has not decided on the direction it needs to go, and so that's why it's pinging around. Whereas somewhere in the middle of the road, comparing between the U.S. market and the European market, the volatility is different, and so the severity of choppiness may be less for the European market. Okay. So essentially the volatility. Okay, the volatility and the direction is essentially just very similar to this something called A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Okay, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, just like the market. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It's true. Foolishness is caused by addiction and emotion, and you cannot trade. And everybody knows this. People say that the psychology is so embedded into trading is that people who are experts know that as soon as they get into the trade, the psychology causes them to be less decisive. Okay, does not have the proper mental mindset, the heightened sense of mindset in order to make the right decisions, because you get dumbed down a little bit more. That's what that means. Everybody knows that. So it was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was like contrasting. It's contrasting between the extremes, which is essentially being dynamic. Okay, A Tale of Two Cities is a description of the market where it describes the volatility and the direction of the market, essentially. Right? It just dawned on me, but I wasn't able to see. I had an idea because the market moves. Sometimes it moves a lot, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it moves a little bit, sometimes it moves dramatically. Okay? Anyway, so trading, as far as the description of the volatility and the direction is concerned, which is defining what a dynamic means, is essentially another statement it is described in a book that Charles Dickens wrote, which is essentially A Tale of Two Cities. Because it's describing the two extremes of the market, which is essentially being dynamic. It's moving from one to the other. That's being dynamic. I hope I got that right. Now what that means is I'm able to, once I figured this out, okay, I haven't figured it out, right? I've just become conscious of this. Now what I can do is hold on to my winners longer, because I'm able to match the volatility and the direction. Okay, volatility especially, because I'm concerned that what would go up and reverse and I would lose, right? So now I can throttle that in, then figure out how to extend that gain. Okay, then what I can do is now I can see the volatility and the direction, and then I can reduce my loss as fast as possible, because now I see the impact of volatility. The impact of volatility in the losses. So what could happen is, like, if I put a stop loss in and move just like that, right? Something that moves extremely. What I can do is, first of all, okay, in order to protect myself, is the size smaller. Okay, size smaller for that particular situation, and then make sure that I have my stop loss in there. The combinations of that is going to limit my loss. Okay, it's going to limit my loss. And the volatility in direction when I'm right will allow me to hold on to my trade when I get that thing dialed in. Okay, so what I'm looking at is the risk size. So there are three things that I need to adjust to, which is being dynamic. Is that I have to make sure so three examples which describe what dynamic means. Dynamic, volatility, and direction is the dynamic, right? That's what it is. Dynamic is volatility and the direction, which is describing what dynamics is. Now, the examples of that would be holding on to my winners longer, cutting my losses faster, okay, and then sizing right. So when I have those things as a second tier supporting my setups, okay, then it's going to dramatically, I believe, okay, because I'm not profitable yet, okay. I want the whole world to know that I'm not a profitable person yet. So whatever I say, it doesn't mean anything, okay? It's not even an advice, okay? It's not an advice because I'm freely admitting that I don't know how to trade, and I've lost even just today. I'm a losing trader, okay? What I'm looking forward to and moving towards is getting those examples, extend my winners, cut my losses fast, and then adjust my risk size to match that up, to support the setups that I'm actively engaged in to enhance. Okay. So essentially, what I'm doing is it is a tale of two cities. Essentially, that's what it is.